Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Milan podcast, early morning recording. So if you see my eyes look dead, that is the reasoning. But alongside me are two guys who have plenty of energy, Matt Santangelo, and our special guest for the first time on That Milan podcast, Marco Messina. Marco, thanks for joining us, my man.
Of course. Thanks for having me, boys. We're running this back. I feel like you guys are the OGs that when Twitter was amazing back in the day, we used to have good conversations and everything was positive. Nowadays, it's a little bit different, but it's good to see you, both of you. You're doing great work covering Milan week in and week out. I see it on socials. And before we start, I saw something on Instagram, and I want to give a shout out to Martino. You won an Emmy. Did I see that correct?
Yes, that is an Emmy. That is from. We were just talking about the Olympics. Thank you, guys.
Well done.
That was
Proud of
from
you.
the Paris Olympics. So working for NBC and Peacock. So that just came in the mail yesterday, as they're all working the current Olympics in Milan, which is implicating the club a little bit. But that's for a different conversation. But we're so happy to have you. Thank you for giving us our flowers. We also know the same. I think the last time we saw each other in person was actually a big event that the three of us were at, and Antonio was at the Football Factory in New York City when Franco
No.
Baresi showed up. It was, I just remember it well because Milan were playing Bayern in Kansas City.
2019?
Yes.
You were at the 40-40 Club for the Florenzi event?
No, I wasn't
No.
there.
Oh, that was
I think-
Aaron West, and I think
Christine Cupo
Cupo,
was the
We
other.
haven't seen each other in that long. Is
Yeah.
that
I
true?
think so. I think so. Yeah. Besides, I think we were on. What was this? Geez, forgive me. Oh my goodness, Filippo Silva on Tactical Manager
yeah.
channel.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
when we
yeah.
last talked. But yes, Marco's been doing stuff forever. He talks about like Twitter OG. Marco's like a Italian calcio content creator OG, especially on YouTube. Because I remember when you guys were driving around all over the country, going to go see whatever Serie A club was playing over here in the States. You guys were uploading everything on YouTube, translating news. This was like, oof. That might have been when did you guys start exactly? When you started consistently doing
15,
uploads?
16, right?
Yeah. I remember I was in high school when I opened my Twitter account, and I was just like not paying attention in class and just translating news. And it's funny how the journey's gone from that and then YouTube and the way social media and everything changed. But we all remain the same, and we all kept in touch for this many years. So it's awesome.
I think the one thing too was I think one of the first conversations we had in person, Marco, was at the Steve Nash event. I think that was in Manhattan. I think 2016 when like Ted Lasso was there. Obviously now it's like an actual whole thing. That's a whole show now.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first thing that was like the big viral video that you guys had. Obviously you got a lot of like criticism for it because from Juventus fans was the Pogba.
Yeah, that was funny.
But yeah, it's been a while, man. It's great to have you on some 10 years later. And obviously, you know, you're thriving with Paramount, and you're largely to credit, amongst others, why Serie A is taking off in this country. So thank you for that.
It's good to catch up, and I'm excited to catch up about Milan. I don't know where you guys stand so far on Milan, but I think I have sort of a hot take, and I'm feeling pretty confident about this team. I'm not going to give it away yet. We could.
I think I know where you're going
audience.
because of what your prediction last year was for the league. So I have an idea.
Easy. It could be. It could be.
It could be. It's not as bold because we are almost in March. We're already halfway through February.
Yes.
But let's kind of talk about that. This is where Milan, I mean, they were terrible last year at this point, right? Mm-hmm. But there was a bit more energy after the January transfer window, winning Supercoppa. Obviously, after getting eliminated to Feyenoord, they were just once a week, and nothing ever really changed from then on. Last year was, and I know you're kind of around the same age as us, that was the worst Serie A season for Milan. Bonetti agreed, same thing. For relative to expectations, take out the Banta era years, last year was a disaster. It was so bad. What was your kind of take on it? Because Milan were in the background when it came to Italian teams last year. I know everyone was laughing at them for the most part, but your thoughts on last year and then how they handled heading into this season.
I feel like last year could be summed up by Milan. If it could go wrong, it would go wrong. Everything went against the team, whether it was within the locker room or coaching. There's so much chaos. And I was actually in Saudi Arabia when Milan lifted the trophy and Conceição and the cigar, and I thought that was going to be the turnaround. I thought, okay, now's the time that could be the momentum that they needed. And I looked up where they sit now after 23 games. They have 15 points more now than they did last year, with 9 goals less conceded. Last year they were 8th. Today they're 2nd place with a game in hand, by the way, over 3rd place Napoli, which is pretty impressive. And I remember meeting Fonseca at the start of last year in the summer, and I was able to ask him some questions just off camera. And I said, Milan finished 2nd in Serie A, but there was 10 teams with a better defensive record than Milan. What are you going to do to improve that? And his answer was, oh, we're going to attack more. We're going to press and win the ball high up, so it won't matter in the back. I said, okay, wow, genius, right? It didn't work out. It clearly didn't work out. I don't think necessarily he's the only person to blame in that situation, but it didn't work for whatever reason. And Allegri came in, he looked at those numbers, and he said, we are a team that needs to play on the counterattack. That's number one. They're a team that's built to do that. Marcus Thuram even said that Real Madrid and Milan are the 2 best counterattacking teams in the entire world, and you have to improve your defensive record. It's really funny because I knew that was going to be the case if you follow Allegri, and if you look at the trend of where Milan were. I had the chance to interview Pulisic about a week ago for Sirius XM, and the first thing he said is, Allegri came to us and showed us our defensive numbers and said, this is not good enough. This is where we need to improve our game. So I think that's pretty clear. The understanding now, if you don't like the style, if you're upset, if you want tweaks, if you want them to improve the smaller games, I totally understand. But if you say what you brought Allegri in for at this point, he has done exactly what I would have expected. If not, they're probably above where people would have put them in the table come February.
Yeah, I mean, I think people were also like noticing this point as well through the match days. They're, I think, 1 point higher than the Pioli side that won the Scudetto in 21-22. And I know that's a credit and testament to playing once a week. I understand all that, but they haven't been particularly healthy, especially in attack. I mean, you already sent a couple of things to us about the updates on Salamakers, Pulisic, Rafael Leao, and I know the criticism always for him. I'm one of his number 1 defenders when it comes to this. But, you know, when your best player or one of your best players cannot run and he is predicated on his physical ability, that will hinder you greatly. And we see it in the numbers with him and Christian because their efficiency and their goal scoring rate relative to their minutes is sky high. It's some of the best in the league. Someone just, I think it was our good friend Joe Cappuccino, posted yesterday how Lautaro's on like 14 goals or something in the league. Pulisic is still 2nd. He's with 8 goals. So, I mean, this guy hasn't really played healthy, and it's pushing 2 months now at this point with him. So, really not great heading into the World Cup. But that's the sort of thing, too, is if Milan doesn't drop points against these sides like Pisa, who they're playing Friday, and the Parma match, Cremonese, the first match of the season. These are all at San Siro except for Parma. They could be tied with Inter or slightly ahead of them. And I know you could do this with every squad in Serie A, but this whole concept, Matt, I'll go to you first, of, you know, Milan doesn't play sexy, but it's about results. That's all that matters at this point. Yeah. After you finish 8th place in Serie A last year, you miss Europe as a whole. I don't care how you play. Just get wins, get results. They're doing that so far, but do you think the work is kind of underappreciated? Because they're under fire every single week. For the Roma performance, there was a couple others, like Como away was another one. Even though they got away with it, your good friend Grella was kind of like, that's not good. You can't play like that. Yeah. And he's right to an extent, because eventually a team will punish you with good finishing. Roma and Como didn't really have that. But Matt, I mean, is it getting to the point where he's just underappreciated at this rate? Because 5 points off a squad like Inter is really not poor whatsoever.
You know, to Marco's point, you know, you look at where they were last year relative to this year. And then I also am a big believer in the expectation. I think if you told people on February 10th, I had to actually look at the corner of my screen to make sure I had the date correctly. Milan are 2nd place. They're going to be, you know, potentially 5-6 points off Inter heading into that crucial second derby, perhaps the biggest derby in some 4 years since the Giroud brace. I think every Milan fan would have signed up for that, given what we were left with last year, right? And when you mention the poor defensive record, this is by and large the same defensive personnel Milan had last year, right? They're playing different formation, different shape. They're adding another center back. They're playing with the wing backs, right? So a lot of the pieces are the same, but it's the way they're being presented, the way they're being thrusted onto the pitch, and what they're being asked to do by Allegri is much different, and the results are evident. Like, this is a much more polished, organized, more structured team. And I think that those expectations Milan fans have to kind of really revert back to anytime they're, upset with what they're seeing with Allegri and the way he plays football and goes about his business, or upset when he says, the goal is top four. I think he's one of those ultimate professionals in the sense that he really has a good understanding of how to handle the group, set expectations amongst the group and what he asks from them. But also when he goes to the media, how to present it in a way that doesn't put more pressure on the players. And I think we get too caught up in, well, he's saying this in the media, we should be getting, a title. That should be the aim. And it's like, I get it. This is Milan. We all understand that here. But how many times did we see that pressure and frustration mount under previous coaches? And they're like, we just got to do this. They seemed very unsure of themselves and unsure of what they were doing. And I think that's what Allegri really does extremely well, is he knows how to manage the media side of things, which we know can be very cruel and difficult when things aren't going that great. So I think on top of everything on the field, on top of maybe what he didn't get in the market and what pieces that maybe he could have really used as you see the season play out, I think he's been an exceptional hire. And this is exactly what I think, you really wanted from a manager like Allegri, someone to really steady the ship, counterattacking, to Marco's point, really set an expectation and set an understanding and identity, more importantly. And that's what's gotten them results more times than not.
Matt is 100% correct. And I feel like in Italy, more than anywhere in the world, there's like such a game in the media between the coaches and what they say and how they manage expectations. It was so interesting because, of course, I follow and I see Allegri saying that. And having just watched his teams and listened to his press conferences for years, I know the game he's playing a little bit, right? And you have to do it to an extent. We had Salamakers join our show on CBS. I don't remember which match. And our very own Nigel Reo-Coker asked a fantastic question. And I felt like Salamaker slipped a little bit. And he goes, the first conversation Allegri had with us was saying that if we defend better, if we do this metric, we can win the Scudetto. And he didn't say top four. He said Scudetto. So that's what he's saying within the locker room. So you can't take what he says to the media, top four. What he's saying to the team, Allegri understands that this team is capable of winning. Did they deserve to finish where they were last year? No, the Milan squad was better than their positioning. And he even brought up this stat. I remember Allegri's first press conference with Milan. 14 of the last 15 winners in the Serie A had the best defensive record. The only team who won Serie A in the last 15 years who didn't have the best defense was Maurizio Sarri's Juventus that had Cristiano Ronaldo. So I think that could be the exception, right? So that's what his focus is going to be on. Martino, I checked your stat, by the way, and you're absolutely correct. They're 1 point ahead of where Pioli's Milan were after 23 matches. I think the biggest thing, he's underappreciated. Now, do you want to say that you want to see improvements in the smaller games? Sure. I'll 100% agree with that. Yeah. 5 points against Cremonese, Pisa, Sassuolo, Parma, Genoa, Fiorentina. That's not what you come to expect with Milan. Do I think they could have a little bit more courage in those games? Yes. I feel like you don't always have to play the 3-5-2. You can experiment a little bit more against these teams that when they're playing a low block, maybe you need a 4-3-3 or whatever. It's not for us to say the formation to Allegri, but I think they can have more courage in those matches. And when you do play in the bigger games, I absolutely love the system that they play because they can exploit them going far. But you said it in the beginning of the show. We've barely seen Pulisic and Leao. So for me, I actually take that as a positive. The fact that you're in second place and you still haven't seen two of your most important players play together enough for what we come to expect, and you can improve in these smaller games and Allegri has more time. To me, that's the upside. And the biggest thing is exactly like what Napoli did last year. Napoli would not have won the Serie A if Inter didn't go to the Champions League final. That's just the reality of the situation. If Inter goes far in the Champions League and Milan stay there, they could do it. They could go all the way. So basically what I'm telling you boys is you need to cheer for Inter in the Champions League. You cheer for Inter in the Champions League, and maybe you could celebrate a Scudetto in May.
Yeah, no, I say this all the time, like, because I know you guys and what you're doing at IFTV, like, totally understand it, back it. Even if you're a Juventino, you want to see Italian teams do very well. I agree. I'm okay with an Italian team making the final, just as long as they lose it. Like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make a difference. That's fine. Inter can go all the way that they want. They've been tremendous. It's really hard, like, to rip Kivu as well. There's only one team that has scored 40 goals besides Inter. That's Juve, and Inter nearly at 60 goals. They have 57 in the league. They're just a machine. Thuram isn't honestly having the best of seasons either, compared to his recent years. So what they've been able to do is great. It's just kind of hoping Inter do what Milan have been doing, and that's slipping up against the lesser sides, because they've kind of been the inverse of each other, where Milan are winning and not losing all these big games. Like the one against Roma, like I know Roma's been struggling against the big sides. They should have lost that. So lucky to come away with a draw. I don't really care about the penalty at the end of that one. But I
you
think
need moments like that, though, right? Like you're not going to be on a top form the entire year, right? And I know the game against Como is the one that everyone went crazy about, and Fabregas lost his mind, and this and that. To me, he says 9 times out of 10, Milan will lose that game. I love Fabregas. I love Fabregas, but I totally 100% disagree. That game, it was so obvious how that game was going to play out. And it makes it really exciting for the second match, because to me, that puts even more pressure on Como now to beat Milan, because if you lose 2, that's a mess. And I think Allegri is going to manage that to perfection. So I think, yes, do we expect more? Do we want to see improvements in certain areas? 100%. Absolutely. That's not to say that what they've done so far is not phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's kind of the overall thing here of them catching Inter. It's it's an 8-point gap with 1 game in hand, because they play Pisa on Friday. I think it's invaluable to kind of have Leao, with his injuries, getting nearly 3 weeks of rest, because he didn't play in the previous match against Bologna, and the match against Roma is on the 25th. So it's really kind of almost unprecedented these days with the big club getting that much rest. I think only them and United really have this amount of rest this season. Catching Inter, we had Ahmed Badir on last episode, and he was kind of saying, like, they're going to slip up. They're going to slip up. Milan have to win the derby, Marco, in order to win this title. And Matt, you can go after. I feel like that's their only opportunity with this. I don't think a draw is good enough in that game.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I'm in a lot of group chats. Some friends that follow Italian football really closely, some that don't. My father's in some of these group chats, and a lot of guys that like betting on matches. And there was an argument about Milan when they were playing. It might have been Bologna or something like that. People betting against Milan, and I said, I would never bet against Milan in these games. Like, I would never bet it against Milan in any of these bigger matches where another team wants to have possession of the ball. I just can't. Like, they have that big game energy. There's so many players in this squad that will step up when the going gets tough. I think Kivu has tried to also manage expectations and say, yeah, we don't win in any of the big matches, but there's more smaller teams than there are bigger teams. 3 points is the same. Either way, for me, and I remember there was a stat last year when Inter didn't, because it's not just Kivu's fault. The Inter haven't done this for a while. I think it's 14 games, all competitions, that Inter don't beat Juve, Milan, and Napoli. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, it's 14 at this point. And I believe no team has ever won Serie A when you don't beat either Milan, Juve, or Inter, any of those 3 within a season. So it would be interesting to see if that does play out, but it's a long way out. We're talking still a couple of weeks. Injuries could happen. Things could happen from now until then, but there's no way I'm betting against Milan. There's just they've also, Inter don't have that dog in them. Like, they don't have that like cleverness or nastiness at times. I love the way that they play. Phenomenal. It's beautiful. The best in Italy. Only Bayern Munich and Barcelona have outscored them in Europe. Amazing. Right. But when you talk about like a dog fight and you talk about experience, I back Milan in those matches.
Matt, the pressure could shift this weekend. If Milan beat Pisa, which we'll preview a little bit, then the Derby d'Italia is on Valentine's Day, that everybody likes to talk about. It's huge. It's going to be on CBS, where you can watch Marco. How big? Because Juve really have their number, right? And we know like the struggles have been kind of up and down with them. But even last year, that would for me the coming out party for Yildiz on the world stage was that 4-4 game against Inter last season. This is a huge spot. He got that fancy new contract. They played well against Lazio. It could have gone either way. I think the result was fair enough. I know there was penalty shouts, but pressure shifting in Inter's direction if Milan take care of business Friday, you think?
For sure. I mean, I think, when you look at the way that Milan's what Milan's pathway is towards a Scudetto, right? I think it's linear in the sense that it's the one competition. It's not, having to adjust, well, do we play this group versus this team in the Champions League? No, we have this game. Yeah, but this team is like a trap game. So there's none of that. It's Allegri getting his guys ready for that given match day. And I'd argue this is the make or break period of the season for Milan if they want the Scudetto, because you have Pisa, you have Como, the makeup game, Parma, Cremonese, two teams, to Marco's point, Milan dropped points against, right? They've gotten 2 points from those two teams. And of course, ironically enough, Cremonese is the last time they actually lost in Serie A, which is match day 1.
It's crazy.
Then they have Inter, and then they have Lazio. So if you get to that derby and you're 5 points, maybe you're 4, maybe somehow, to you guys' point, Inter slip up, and Milan can get just a little bit more in the door. I think there's blood in the water for them, and I think at this point in time, the biggest key is, can they get healthy? Because I don't think we've really seen a healthy Max Allegri team at any point this entire season. If it's been Leao coming back, it's Pulisic having a setback. If it's Pulisic coming in, it's Leao setback with his hamstring that dates back to, the Bari game against the Coppa Italia in August. So I think that this is such a crucial part of the season. And Allegri always stresses the importance of, at March, it's like a new season. And this is where you want to be peaking, and you want to be healthy, and you want to be hitting your stride. And you look at where the fixtures lie for Milan versus where they lie for Inter. I think someone posted it too. It's Inter have like 2 or 3 more additional fixtures on their plate. And while they may have the upper hand in many of those fixtures, it's games. It's why we watch the 90 minutes of football, to see what the result plays out. So I think this is the part where Milan need to just really strap on their boots, point teams that they didn't get points against early on in the season. Pisa being one of them, they got a draw. They need to get wins here. It's not about the style. It's not about the manner in which you get the result. They need 3, pass the buck back over to Inter. You get into that derby, and we know their record this year against big teams hasn't been there. To Marco's point, they're just lacking that sort of that bite, that courage, that sort of we're not losing this game mentality. And I think that they're really struggling with that. And to be fair, in Inter's camp, this derby against Juventus could be absolutely crucial, because Juventus have a lot of things going for them. And this is a potential launching off point for either Juventus to kind of reestablish themselves. Hey, like, we've had some difficult years, but we're beating Inter in a derby. We're right back in that conversation. And for Inter, they need a game like this against a big team to kind of reaffirm what everyone feels like they know already, is that they're the favorites for the Scudetto.
Yep. Yeah, I think Matt is spot on with that. And I think Allegri has always said that come March and April, you just need to be within striking distance. Yeah. You just need to be able to keep it close, and then things can change. There's so many good storylines here. If you talk about Inter and Juventus, the thing that I kept thinking about is that I think Inter's backup center forwards are better than any Juventus center forward, which is just crazy to say. And I'm talking just like number 9s, like Openda, Jonathan David, even throw Vlahovic in there. Yeah, actually, yeah. Same goes for Milan. Freaking Boni and Pio Esposito would be starters on this team, which is credit to the way that they manage this team. Another like fun, interesting point there that I was wrestling with is that could be decisive. The fact that Milan have a much better goalkeeper than Inter is something that's been on my mind. The fact that there's not really a lot of faith behind him right now. Inter fans, should we play Martinez? He's got a mistake in him. Magnan has earned, I don't know how many points, maybe 10 points for Milan at this point. Big game goalkeeper. These little things could play part. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is that Inter, through this period without Barella, Hakan, and Dumfries. Barella, Hakan, and Dumfries, they've been playing without. They're still getting wins. They're still managing it with ease. To me, that says a lot about the roster. Not to say that they're not going to slip up. Okay, of course they can, but the fact that they've done that without those 3 key players in so many matches is a strength to them. But yeah, Sunday's going to be really good.
Yeah, that was the biggest difference for Inter this year. It really cost them the title. Was Arnautovic and Taremi just really being so poor last year? Zielinski is obviously a huge boost from someone that was with the squad last season, but I think those 3 in general is the complete difference. Say they even played like half a good season last year, or they have them. They beat Napoli. They lose on the final match day. The last 2 times that Inter have lost the title has been on the final match day. So they're always in there till the end. Oh well, boo-hoo. So this topic for me, Marco, is very interesting. You guys did a great segment on CBS about this on the MVP for pretty much like all the top sides in Serie A. And most of you, I think you and Bonetti were going with Luka Modric for Milan, and I think it might have been Magnan as well. Mike Grella had brought up a point that Rabiot had been one of the more valuable players. And I was actually screaming at the TV, yes, finally someone else saying that something similar. The MVP for Milan, in my opinion, can go multiple ways this year. I think with how valuable Leao and Pulisic have been in their own right, they are valuable. Rabiot and Modric, I think they're interchangeable on how valuable. Modric in the first half of this season was unplayable, I thought. He slowed down a little bit because give him a break. He's 40 years old. He's playing every single week. I think he's leading the team in minutes as well, too. But Rabiot, the second he walked through the door for this team, for me, I think he's been so reliable. We even see his performance against Bologna as well. Multiple matches. I think he's just been that workhorse that Matt and I have kind of highlighted. He's filled that void of what Frank Kessie was for those key years with Milan, that they had a bully in the midfield that was able to be physical, win the ball back. And sure, he's able to produce offensively. We've seen that a little bit more recently. But your MVP for Milan, is it as simple for you? I think at this point, after the past couple of weeks, it's Mike Magnan. I think him and Di Marco, depending on who wins the Scudetto, would be the MVP of the league today. Who do you think at this point? Are you giving a little bit more credit to Rabiot after that segment?
So I really like Rabiot, and he was on my list of MVP. But I guess, and I think that he fits really well in this system, right? Where he has the ability to make those runs. When he has to play in a 2 without a 3-man midfield, he's limited. He doesn't get to go up. So they play to his qualities to perfection. I love the darting runs into the box. He's such a threat. Another guy that's scored goals in important moments, big game player. Absolutely. You could even argue Magnan. There's people that will probably say Leao and Pulisic. I could see it. Any of those guys you want to tell me, I could see the argument 100%. I guess where I go when you say MVP is I think to myself, if you're playing a final, you're playing a Scudetto final, you're playing a Champions League final, whatever you want to say, and I can only choose one guy to not miss, I'm choosing Modric. For me, he's just the brains of the teams. In that moment, he would just be so crucial. That's not to say that the rest of the players are not important. And also, I look at the drop-off if he's not there. So who's the reserve player if he's not going to be there? And I think that you will see a bigger drop-off without Luka Modric into the team than Milan. 100% see the argument for anyone else. But I think we lost it on Grella because he said Rabiot needs Modric. So we're like, come on, this guy's got a Ballon d'Or in 6 Champions Leagues. Do you think that he needs Modric? We mess around and we joke around. But I do see the argument for Rabiot. But if you made me choose only one in a final for Milan, I would put that Luka Modric has to be there personally.
Matt, I know you've been wrestling with this. You give everybody their flowers. Who would you kind of lean towards?
That's a nice guy.
Everyone's MVP now. Honestly, it's crazy. I think it's been such a week to week thing with this team because there's been so many periods where Milan haven't scored. And if it wasn't for Mike Magnan, I mean, he's gotten 3 Man of the Match awards. He got one of them recently. I forgot who it was against. And he
Roma,
was
I think.
Roma, and he was sitting there with a trophy, meaning I'm having to do all this work and I'm frustrated that we're not getting the result more so than I'm holding this award. It's a testament to him as a keeper and as a professional and why Milan really needed to sign him, which they did. But the way Milan have navigated this season, I'd be hard pressed to find a more valuable player within this team, within this turnaround than Luka Modric, because I think truly when you get a player like Luka Modric as an outfield player, it has, in my opinion, presented more of an impact than a Mike Maignan, because this is pretty much the same defense. Granted, you're reorganizing it a little bit more with another center back. But look how much that midfield has transformed as a result of Modric. Yes, Rabiot has been sensational. He's gotten the goals. I think him and Nico Paz, I think, are level on goal contributions from midfielders this year as well. I saw that as a stat. So he's produced in that sense. But I think when you look at the loose ends being tied, through a 90-minute match, through some of the big results they've gotten, do you get some of those results without Luka Modric being the leader, the key cog that holds everything together? This Milan midfield was horrible last year, regardless of how great Tijani Reinders was as Serie A's best midfielder.
Yeah,
this midfield was completely overrun in many games. It looked like it was disheveled. It was very disjointed. And in an instant, you bring in Modric, and he's completely transformed the way this team plays, but also, in my opinion, the way this Milan carries themselves in some of these big games. So I think for those reasons, I have to give it to Luka Modric.
Also, it's incredible. It's incredible. Sorry, real quick, Martino. The fact that Modric, you would never believe he's won everything in his career by the way that he runs and fights on the pitch. I mean, he looks like a youngster that's trying to prove himself. It's just such a joy. I mean, of course, I followed Luka Modric, but when you're watching him week in and week out in Serie A, to me, it's a joy. But I also love that we've given praise to goalkeepers. I hate this damn trend, and it's been on my mind because of Donnarumma lately and what he's doing. Because everyone, he's not good with his feet. He's this and that. The value of goalkeepers, the value when you want to win at a high level, you want to win titles, you want to win championships, you need a goalkeeper who does saves like this. Gasperini said about Zvilar, a great goalkeeper is like a striker that scores 25 goals. And there's just not enough emphasis on this and talking about. I have some of my non-saves just from my own notes. Saves against Como to keep them in. Penalty save against Dybala. The save on Hakan in the derby. The save from Mario Gila in the Lazio game. And then the save on Moise Kean in Fiorentina. That's 5. And maybe I don't even have
I think the Gatti's the save on Gatti in Torino was a huge one. It was the game that Pulisic missed the penalty. There was one where Mike made himself so big in front of the goal. And you're right. It's the same thing. And we've seen both sides of it with Donnarumma at Milan, where there were some instances where the ball was at his feet. You were having a panic attack. And that's usually catered to the style of the squad. So you put a player like that in a situation where he's uncomfortable, that's on you. But your job is to stop the ball from going in the back of the net. And if you're elite at that, none of the other stuff actually matters as much. Because he's the whole reason that he kind of kept City in this race right now. Because if they lose that one to Liverpool, he doesn't stop that shot, then Arsenal are like, it's done. It would have been done this past weekend. So I think you're 100% right in giving flowers to the goalkeepers. I just want to ask you like one last thing, because you were with around Milan last year with the dressing room, and a huge part of what you guys are talking about with the MVP, with Modric and what he does on the field, that sort of veteran presence that Milan seemed to have lacked last year. And I know Morata a little bit, but then he was the one who had a spat in the dressing room, apparently, in Saudi Arabia, and then he was gone to Turkey in a week. So for me, I think what Modric brings in terms of intangibles is unparalleled, because this is arguably the best midfielder of all time, or even his generation. That's how much better he's gotten. I think only Pirlo was this sort of player that got more respect as he got older, because we know how good the both of them were in their prime. But it was just, you put him in different circumstances and situations where Pirlo was clearly elevated all time when he went to Juve, even in the 2012 Euro. What we're seeing with Modric this season, I think if they were to win the title, it catapults him with that. Because we've seen players thrive around the age of 40. Zlatan was good around this age. Totti was still productive. But week in, week out, conversation for one of the best players in the league, forget his own team. I have never seen anything like it. And it's incredible. I hope he stays another year. So what are your thoughts kind of on his intangible aspect? Because even Allegri's like, this guy trains like he's 20 years old. Just showing that amount of work, like, hey, even if I'm in the twilight of my career, look what I'm able to bring every single week. How much do you think that really helped elevate this squad?
It's such a good point, Martino. I love that you brought that up. I think I said in the beginning last year, if it can go wrong for Milan, it will go wrong. And Morata is not the character. He's not the guy that's going to be able to speak to the young players the way Modric is. I mean, the players are starstruck by him. I interviewed Pulisic last week. He said he remembers the first time that he got an assist from Modric in training. He's like, I started thinking about my grandfather who's Croatian and how proud he would be. Like, he's got that aura about him that if you're watching him run his ass off, you better be doing twice as much at the minimum. He had also a decision to make this summer. If he goes to Saudi Arabia and takes the money, and nobody would have faulted him to do that. He's won it all. But he's such a professional, and he wants to be at the top level at the World Cup for his country, for Croatia. That is the sort of person that we're talking about. Not just player. It's the person of Luka Modric that rises to this level that it's unbelievable. I feel very blessed to be able to watch him. I'll say it like that. It doesn't always work out when you just get a name in Italy. You bring him back and you wonder what's their motivation levels going to be like.
Yeah,
he's exceeded everything, and you know what? It doubles down on why I said he's the MVP because, to your point, he's made everybody around him that much better.
Yeah, I think too. What's fascinating about all of this is how one player can have such a massive impact. We talk about what Modric has been for this Milan, and it's sort of reminiscent of what Ibrahimovic was when he came back to Milan. It's like you look at the sum of the parts and you're like, okay, they got Leao, Pulisic, there's quality here. It needs that sort of example. Hey, like Modric is showing up to training a little bit earlier. He's doing certain things. He's having those conversations with a lot of those younger players. And it's something that mends what was a fractured group and a fractured club from top on down last year. When you look at what he's been to that side of it, on top of what we gotten on the pitch, he's been invaluable. And it's interesting to me that when he was linked to joining Milan on a free transfer, the Romano came out and says, Tare's talking to Modric. Everyone's like, it's not going to happen. He wants more money, yada, yada, yada. He was not going to step into this Milan team, pull on this shirt, given how attached he is to it, and not simply give everything he has. And I think that's why it was such a perfect match for player and club, because there was so much invested in making this work and making this partnership a success, and it has been.
One last comparison. Do you remember when Zlatan joined Milan and when they won the Scudetto? And there was a story from I think it was Leao in training where Zlatan said, "Guys, this is how you've been training. This is how you're running in practice." And all of a sudden, it just elevated the level of everyone to have a person in that locker room where everyone's training. And the last image, maybe to sum it up with Modric, I can't remember the game. I have it written down somewhere. But there's just like this image when Milan win earlier on in the season. I felt like it was a smaller game. Was it the Napoli one?
The one when he got to his knees, because it was after they were down a man for pretty much the entire second half. And
Yes. God, that to me, what a freaking champion! A guy that wants to win at all costs. He could ride off into the sunset, but he doesn't. He wants, and he's a Milan fan. He wants to win with this Milan team.
And I think that was in September or October. So to show that emotion early in the season, it's unparalleled. And it's not even just him. I think just the stability of Tade and Allegri after the sacking of Maldini, there was. You could see it from afar. You were up closer than most people. There was just like no chain of command. It was kind of like Furlani and people from within were promoted that had never been in positions like that, like Moncada, who's apparently leaving, who was their chief scout for a while. So we'll see. But it was a great turnaround in that aspect. So for the final segment of this podcast, gentlemen, preview versus Pisa. Man, this one was a crazy one. In the first half of the season when these two faced off, that one of the matches that Milan, if they end up losing this title, are going to look back on saying that was one of those moments that we cost ourselves. And Pisa are not that bad of a team. And I know where they are in the table. I've seen them play quite often. Sacking Gilardino bothered me because I don't think everything is on him. It's really difficult when you get promoted in this league to have this stability. Only 2 less wins than Fiorentina. I know they've been disastrous, but I thought Pisa overall, their play is not reflective of where they are in the standings. I thought this was sort of a mistake from them. Again, no game is easy in Serie A. I think we all know this at this point, especially with Milan. But this is a must, without a doubt. Have to get 3 points. I don't want to hear any excuses. We'll see in terms of the health and the recuperations, because Marco was sending some of us that information. So listen, Pulisic, Salamakers, they're training individually. Rafa's back with the group. Ultimately, with me and Leao, it's, are you able to sprint? If the answer is yes, then you play. If not, then keep resting until you can.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, on the road, Milan have been very sneakily great on the road this season for whatever reason. And I think that they're going to be able to dominate this one. I think that victory against Bologna, regardless of their form, Milan are feeling a lot more confident about themselves, and especially if they get healthy. I think having someone like Athakame step in for Salamakers has been invaluable. Just having a good performance, not like overly great, because Jonathan Rowe was toying with him on occasion. I think just having that confidence of, I'm not a deer in the headlights. I could step in and play well, similar to what the winter has been recently. I feel actually confident about Milan stepping in this one, and I'm usually a pessimist with this. Marco, what can you tell us about Pisa that you've seen week in, week out that has sort of impressed you?
So I'm going to go on the Pisa hate train now, because I love Gilardino. I loved watching Pisa. They were the team that every week I go on a lot of shows, with people that don't cover Serie A week in and week out and have to give, some color to what Pisa are. And I say, guys, I'm telling you, don't sleep on Pisa. Any game they could fight. Yeah. They're so organized. They'll cross 1 million balls. They're just clever team. But that was under Gilardino. And I think Gilardino was thrown into the fire. This team is not a team that should stay in Serie A, but he was managing them to stay in Serie A. And even the games where they lost, if you actually watched the match, they were in the game and they were doing their absolute best. Every single player knew their role. Meister was, phenomenal, running all over the pitch. I really enjoyed watching Pisa play. I'm on the hate train now, though. They sacked Gilardino. They've gone for this, hipster move and think that that's the problem. That's not the coach was not the problem. The problem is the way that you assembled the team. I remember years ago, 2021, 2022, Genoa did a similar thing when they got relegated. They gave the coaching job to Blessin. I don't know if you guys even remember him, but he was another one of these philosophers. I'm going to press. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It doesn't work. I think that they were clever before. I mean, it's still new to understand what Hildemark will be able to bring to this team. Just saying the truth, I don't know a lot about him as a coach. He's only been in charge of the one game. I think it was the 0-0 against Verona. But if Gilardino wasn't able to do it with this squad, I'm not sure that there's another coach that would have been at that level to do it with them. Maybe new manager bounce, but I don't see that happening. I was looking back. I take notes for every game, and I was looking back at the game between Milan and Pisa from the first leg. And it was Milan that was in total control of the match. It was Milan that in the first half just didn't close out the game. They allowed Pisa to stay within it in the second half. And then the game got away from them a little bit. I don't think that'll be the case this time. I think we do start to see the growth of this Milan team who does get a little bit of rest. Yes, they have to make some rotations, but Gilardino did a miracle to get Pisa, in my opinion, where they are today and to fight in some of those bigger matches. And I think it'll be very difficult and unlikely for another coach to come in and have a better impact than he would have had.
Yeah. Matt, this was an annoying one. They were lucky to get the draw on this because it was Athakame's first goal for the club. He basically hit it on the post and then it went in the 93rd. Quadrado, their nemesis for I don't know how many years, ends up getting the penalty in that one. Enzola, another underrated baller in Serie A, got their second goal. I think that was when Athakame fell. There was some tackling incident in the middle of the pitch with that. This Milan have to come in with a killer instinct, right? There is no reservations with this one. I think they'll play a little bit more on the front foot than usual because of the returning players, because I think Rafa's going to start in this one if he's playing in the group at this point. I think he'll be back. What is your kind of idea on their philosophy in this one? Because if it's Nkunku and Leao, they both have to show that they could play with each other, because I haven't really loved what I've seen with the both of them. And to be fair, it was really difficult against Roma because Milan were just hoofing the ball up the pitch, hoping that they could trap the ball at their feet and play back to goal, the both of them. It just doesn't work that way. So what do you think Allegri has to come in with attacking wise?
I'm conflicted with how I think Allegri should approach the attacking side of things, because I'm a big believer in, if a player's in really good form and has shown you a lot, then I think you have to give him that opportunity. And I think that we will see Nkunku get an opportunity to start from the beginning. And he's been really good in actually since the last match day of 2025 into 2026. I think he's gotten 5 goals in 6 games, but the total performances have been there. So I think that you can't put a player like that back on the bench in a game like this, because I think these are the matches you expect your bench to step up to provide relief for guys that are not 100%. And, in a way, the injuries have forced players to take on more responsibility and more prominent roles, right? You mentioned, Salamakers being injured. Atakame, a player that was an afterthought. People thought, why'd we spend X amount on him in the summer? We could have gotten a more proven player, a proven commodity. And he had a really good game, a coming out moment against Bologna, where it gives you that trust as Allegri to put him in. So I think we will see him. But on the attacking side, I'm conflicted because I don't want to see Leao take on this responsibility coming into a game like this that can be very, very humbling, very tough, very difficult. To Marco's point, you need to have courage in a lot of these games, especially against some of these smaller teams where we know what the blueprint is. We know where Pisa is in the table. We know what they need from this game. It doesn't need to be a win. It just needs to be a draw. They can take a point, get out, no problem. I think Milan are going to come into this game with a little bit more of an edge to their game, because they understand the importance of these matches. And when I look at their away record, you guys mentioned it, their away record in that Scudetto winning season, I think they were unbeaten on the road. They were stronger on the road than they were at San Siro, which is insane to me, because San Siro, should be a fortress. We always heard about in those prime Juventus years that, Allianz Stadium, Juventus Stadium was a fortress. They don't give up goals. They don't give an inch with that defensive back line and goalkeeper. I think Milan have really traveled well this year, and I think they'll actually get the job done. I'm still kind of struggling and wrestling with the idea of, do we go with Füllkrug and Nkunku? Because I think it could be one of those games where you're going to need someone that can just take the ball down and spread it out, let guys invite and come into play. And I don't know if Nkunku Leao, based on what we saw in that Roma game, granted, Leao wasn't fit. I just don't know if that's the recipe for a game like this. So I don't know.
Go ahead, Marco. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just I was looking at Halen Marca a little bit, just Pisa's coach, because like I said, I'm on this hate train now, and I'm going to be following this very closely. And some comments from his last job from fans that were watching him, their reaction to the move. 8 defeats in his last 10 competitive matches, and suddenly he becomes a coach that moves to a top 5 league. How on earth did this happen? Another comment. One of the worst managers we've had in modern history, and he gets rewarded with a move to Serie A club. Thank God, at least he's gone. So doesn't seem like not great. Sorry, I found this very funny.
No. No, it's all interesting information, especially when Serie A side. There's always those hipster moves. I know everyone is kind of. I see a few people be a little harsh on Parma's manager, the wonder kid from Montreal, who's even younger than all of us. So the attack is a very interesting thing, right? Because we bring up Marco the 3-5-2. Milan don't really have 2 strikers, right? Because Santi Jimenez had been hurt. They loaned in Füllkrug, Pulisic and Leao kind of weren't healthy, and they had to play Nkunku up top. Do you think that there needs to be more flexibility with the attack in certain matches? Maybe not necessarily against the Pisa, but in this one, to Matt's point, I thought, Füllkrug should have gotten the start last match against Bologna, because I think he's just that great traditional striker. And the way Milan were going to be able to score, even though they played great, we're going to be coming from set pieces like that, or just, poaching inside the 18-yard box. Do you think that's maybe an approach Allegri should try out? And Nkunku, who traditionally is a second striker or a number 10, playing off of a traditional 9 like Füllkrug, where they're both in the position that they know so well that they could probably thrive in. Because I think Füllkrug is actually built for Serie A. Because I know a lot of people are hesitant about players that have had success in Bundesliga. I think he works perfectly and well in an Allegri system. Or do you say, no, Rafa's our best player. If he's healthy, you got to put him in there, even if it's with Nkunku and the fit might be, a little difficult over the course of 90 minutes. So what do you think with that approach?
I agree with you on Fulkrug. I mean, I think he's not a center forward that we're going to remember for years to come,
Right.
but he's got good link-up play. I think he could help the rest of the team play around him. I think he could play his part within a season for Milan. Again, January transfer market is usually one that needs opportunities more than clear strategy. And clearly, you mentioned Jimenez. I don't think we'll see him play for Milan much longer, if that ever. I think that was a big flop, spending that much money in the last January. I think I mentioned earlier on when we started the show that I do think these are the games where Milan can have a little bit more courage and to play with some bravery in these matches. And I understand that Allegri's first goal is to defend first, and that it's the individuals that end up winning you the match in the final third. That's basically his philosophy. It's very simple. It's not very complicated. He often talks about Real Madrid and says, do you ever talk about Real Madrid's style of football? No, you talk about their great players that they had. And, all you got to do is organize things in the back. And then it's the guys up top that could solve a game. And Kunku's also a player that he sort of wants to be like a Leao, especially for the French national team. Like oftentimes you'll see him start from that left side position. Like you said, he's not really a center forward. I think that these are the games that also you'll start to see players like even Bartesaghi need to push a lot more on the left side to make those overloads, which Inter does this. The Inter does this better than maybe anyone. They just get so many numbers, so many crosses inside the box when teams do play a high line. The difference is you don't really have that center forward unless there is a Fulkrug there that you're sending these crosses to. So there is for sure an imbalance, but I feel confident that despite some of the players that are going to be missing, I sent the update before with Salamakers and Pulisic that they were training individually on their own. These are not the games that I would risk those players. There's the big ones that could be the deciders in winning the league. And it'll be a game that I think we'll see very classically managed in this match. But I do agree with you overall in the sentiment. I would love to see that courage and to change things. I'm not sure if we're there yet, though.
Oh, so speaking of courage, because I just thought of this, and then we'll do the prediction and we'll finish and we'll let you go on with your day. Courage to put in a third midfielder next to Modric and Rabiot. We've seen Rudeci, we've seen Fofana plenty, we've seen a lot of Loftus-Cheek. From what you've seen in the limited minutes with Arden Yashadi, who was a huge money purchase this past summer, I think he's shown flashes, but there's really nothing that you could take away in terms of sample size. Do you think, and Allegri views him as a number 6 so far. I think he views Modric as a backup. Do you think there should be some risk in being like, hey, why don't we just try and put him in there where I'm not comparing it like for like, but when Kalulu stepped in for Kier and Milan had that duo that basically rode out the rest of the season and that won them the title, do they put in someone like Yashadi next to those two where they play once a week? Because I think Yashadi is probably the more dynamic midfielder out of all the other guys that could fill in that third spot. Do you think it would be something interesting that Allegri could try and test out? Because Yashadi seems like a high motor player at the very least. That's always going to be aggressive, trying to win the ball back. I think that's a huge element that needs to be in when you have a 40-year-old midfielder there. Do you think Allegri should try and risk something like that or kind of stay with the status quo? And that's like a Fofana and, Loftus-Cheek filling in that position.
Matt, you want to go?
No, that's for you, I think.
Oh, you're the big guest. Come on.
Yeah. I think I liked Yashadi in the little that we've seen from him. As you said, it's really been the Modric replacement. I thought there would have been a bigger drop off when they did lose Luka Modric in those games. He played it a little bit safe. And I know this is one of the ones that we were arguing in the back in CBS where I was sticking up for Yashadi and saying like, he's good. And Grella said it was a little too safe and basic. And I do agree. Yeah. But I guess when you see Modric go down, I thought it would have been worse without him. So I think it's a good idea. And I think that's what I do mean when I say there could be a little bit more courage. Do you always need to go for a physical presence in the midfield in games like this? Can you add more technical ability, a player that can create a little bit more? That's exactly what I mean. Okay, yes, you play against Inter, you play against Juventus, you play against Napoli. I get it. You need those, bodyguards almost that are going to be able to bring a lot of fight. But in these games where it's more about technical ability, you believed in Yashadi. You spent big on Yashadi. why not? Why not go that route? That's exactly what I mean when I say that. And I think that is where you could tamper a little bit, is in the midfield, which is Milan's best position. That's the strength of their team, is the midfield position. I would like to see more technical ability in games like this, in games where teams are going to sit back. Pisa do they're a little like Atletico Madrid in a sense. Like, they make the game a little bit dirty, and they're going to foul you. They're going to sit back. They're fine hitting out on the counter. These could be the opportunities to see that, and I'm sure Allegri will learn throughout the year that that's going to have to be the way that they go forward.
Yeah.
Matt, any final points on that before we do a fun prediction?
Sure. Yeah. I think Marco, not going to hit the nail on the head. I think that, Yashari should be, with his quality, the one player that can sort of break the mold, break into that midfield conversation, right? We know that Modric and Rabiot, since they arrived, were going to be shoe-in starters. With Milan playing once per week, unless there was injury, unless there was a quick turnaround, unless it was a grueling game or carded or whatever the case may be, those two players are going to be in there. So the quality for that final position has to show somewhere. Fofana, we know what his role has been. He's had some moments this year where you're like, okay, maybe he is turning a new leaf, maybe he is turning a corner, and you understand why Allegri likes him and why he's putting him in that position over Loftus-Cheek and Ricci, who we've seen quite a bit of. I think there's a really good opportunity that with the quality Ashari has, I think his quality will just simply be too good for Allegri to say, I can't keep putting this guy in for 10 minutes at the end of matches. I gotta, if it's not against Pisa, then I'm not going to take that risk against Inter, Napoli, Lazio, Juve. Like, these are the games that I really need to see something personality-wise and quality-wise from this big investment. Otherwise, we're going to keep continuing to recycle big name signings, right? Because Nkunku, not a profile as a striker. You bring him in, you spend a lot. You need to see him in that position because that's what you bought him for, and he's starting to turn a corner. Same thing with Yashari. With the injury setback, it's been very difficult that first season. But I think in recent weeks, the fitness has been there. You're seeing glimpses, him playing vertical, him being able to, win the ball back, do a lot of those sorts of things that we saw with him at Club Brugge and even the Champions League games. So I think games like this, I would love to see Yashari get more of an opportunity. But truthfully, I think Allegri has shown us that, with it being one match day per week or one game per week, there's really no need to adjust and overanalyze every single match. He knows what he has in Fofana, and it's why that, despite all the criticism many have given Fofana, there's a reason why the coach who has this team in second place, who has won numerous titles, likes the player. So you almost kind of like, if you trust the coach, you trust his decision-making with the midfield.
All right. Final question of the podcast, Marco. What is going to be the score of this match?
I'm going to go with, and I was just looking at some of the numbers of Pisa, and we talked about the home and away form, right, for Milan before, that they should be good at home. Pisa's numbers at home: 1 win, 4 draws, 7 losses, 3 goals scored. Last in Serie A. They are very poor at home, and I believe 2 of those goals only recently came, if I'm not mistaken. I remember thinking that they only had 1 goal at home. Pisa is going to lose 2-0. Milan win.
2-0.
2-0. Yes, that's what I'm going with.
Matthew.
Yeah, I'm also going to go 2-0. I just think that Milan are going to learn from their mistakes. They're going to learn from the fact that they simply can't drop points against these teams this time around, because it's why they're in the position they're in. We all know their record against some of these provincial bottom of the table teams. I think in this game, I might go as far as saying that what I saw against Bologna and what I've seen in recent weeks, I think they're going to actually fully command this game from the beginning. They're going to get an early goal, they'll get a second, and I think they'll really coast through this 2-0 win.
Yeah, I think the Bologna victory really has positioned themselves in a better spot, and now this is truly where Milan start to take form of this one match a week situation. I know upcoming there's a couple 5-7 day breaks, but 10 days overall to rest is
huge,
completely different for clubs of this size these days. I think Milan are actually going to be dominant in this one. I'm going to go 3-0, a back-to-back 3-0.
Wow.
We're not gonna hear any of this nonsense about Allegri's and the play style. I think Milan actually create plenty decent amount. I think he's getting too much harsh criticism with that. But yeah, and I think that Full Crew will get a goal in the second half.
I thought you were pessimistic. That's what you told me.
I did. That's why I said I'm usually pessimistic. This week I'm not. But yeah, overall I don't. You don't want to know what I think of what's going to happen this season towards the end. We can talk about that off here. But thank you so much, Marco, for joining us again. Absolutely. You've done great work. You're always so humble and kind and generous with your time. So we always greatly appreciate you. It's such a great thing to see you on television and coming into your own over the past couple of seasons. Your role has expanded so much over at CBS. We're genuinely very happy for you, and many people that know you also feel the same, I'm sure. So again, where everybody can go and follow you, if you guys haven't already, IFTV, their official podcast. Antonio is one of the greatest characters. Everybody almost knows somebody like an Antonio if you are Italian-American, Italian-Canadian, whatever. One of the nicest guys, too, that we've met in person. So everything that you guys do with Michael, Peter, your father, it's great stuff, and your merch is fire as well. Is that a new jacket or one of the newer ones that you guys are on?
This is actually Lotto. They're one of our new sponsors. Yeah, I just got it yesterday. Martino, those are very kind words from you. It's hard to come across really good people, especially that we all met on the internet, which sounds weird to say, but I could genuinely say I value the friendship that we have. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job promoting Milan week in and week out. I've gone on a few other podcasts, Napoli and Juventus ones recently, and I've said I feel like the fact that this community has been growing so much since everyone started, and there's so many different English-speaking Serie A creators that are putting out content for people to educate and learn about and have some banter and mess around. I think that actually is the best value Serie A could have. That is the best chance at pushing this league out, is having podcasts like yours where people could find it and learn and get creative with. So credit to you guys for the work that you do. Like I said, I value this friendship. Thank you for the kind words. And let's see who's correct on the prediction. And I think maybe I'll come back if you guys invite me back at the end of the season, and we'll see, Martino, if you're correct on where you think this season's going to go for Milan, or if you guys will be celebrating. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I don't even want flowers for what I think will happen, because they'll be sad flowers. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marco.
Follow Marco everywhere, guys. And again, Matt at AC Milan Bros, at Matt_Santangelo. We've seen Unk get better on the IG.
Can I say a couple things about Marco?
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
Giving Marco, I'm going to give Marco his flowers, because I think I see I've seen a lot of the work and the culmination of a lot of his efforts over the years. Him, Mike, all the work rate, putting out content, putting out things to really help grow Serie A, and you can see the passion show in the work. And I think seeing him on the stage that he's in, going to San Siro for derbies, Champions League games for Inter and all these other clubs, like it's truly one of those, like it's one of those, like those stories of someone getting into this industry, just work prevailing, work getting you to where you want to be. And I think that you're an example for people in the content creation space. And I say this to a lot of people all the time, is there's no better time to be creating content, especially for Serie A, because as Serie A fans, as Serie A content creators and enjoyers, we are going to always represent this league so proudly. It's easy to get access to the Premier League, La Liga, some of these other leagues. For us to be willing to go and say, hey, we're going to talk about, these niche topics and do it so, very authentically, and not really care so much about the followers, the likes, and all these sorts of things, because we truly love it. I think it really shows in the work that you do, obviously, and you can see the passion shows every time you go and talk about Serie A matches. So, big ups to you. I think, I speak for everyone in the Milan community that we have here, that, you're a refreshing example for what we want representing Serie A going forward. So, thank you for everything, man.
That's extremely kind. I'm very humble. Thank you, boys, for the nice words. See, I got to come on here more often. I like the compliments. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we always try to give everybody their flowers. So
Yeah.
but it's always meaningful. They're no fake words. We don't mince. And then again, just to follow us everywhere at that Milan podcast on everything, guys, that you want to go and check out. TikTok doing pretty well. We're zooming on there, and then yeah, everywhere else. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate your time, Marco. Keep killing it. Enjoy the match this weekend. Hope it's a draw between those. Actually, nah, I can never say I want to see Juve win, but we appreciate you guys. Give Bonetti a big hug for us, and our good friend Gio Cozzolino as well. So other than that, take care, guys. See you next time.